Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Versatex Products and Best Practices webinar. For those that don't know me, I'm Bobby Parks. I'm a former residential builder and remodeler and outdoor living contractor. Operated in the North Atlanta area, focused on delivering more high-end products, higher-end products. Sold the business in 14. Of course, some of the products that I use would include PVC and Versatex PVC trim. We go through this, if you'll just hit the chat box, we'll try to get back to you with an answer as quick as possible, or I'll contact you later after the webinar. But I really want to just take a little time with you today and discuss my personal experience working with PVC and working with Versatex product offer best practices, and talk about some of the specialty products that Versatex has in the installation. I have a history going way back with PVC. I think I first found out about it in 2003, started using it in 2004, started incorporating it into a lot of jobs that we were doing. Again, I was in the outdoor living market at that time. This is just a job where one of the earlier ones that we were building. You can see a lot of white, pretty much everything you see, except for the porch over there is PVC. This particular job was featured in This Old House magazine in May of 2008. It was built in 06, but it ended up in the magazine in 08. And again, at the time, we didn't really trust or didn't feel like we could rely on some of the manufacturers readily. So we were building our own hybrid systems, and we were using the PVC as a cap. And first time I'd ever actually made a bar top or a serving area out of the PVC. A lot of uses. Found that it made a great outer band. It felt like it worked better as an outer band than decking manufacturers' outer band materials. Just worked well, moved less, didn't try to cup up on us. Just worked very well. Worked same way on the stringer skirts. I did mine where the skirts just with the nosing of the treads. I know I like to cut it out, but that's the way I like to do it. Easy installation. And for riser boards, especially on 3-board bench steps. And it was easy to bend, especially the 5/8 material. That's what we mostly use. And we would bend it around. I mean, unless we got into something really tight, nobody had to heat anything up. You just pushed it and bent it around and fastened it. So these are just a few examples of how we were using it. This one's a little tighter, but still was no problem to bend. The rail cap obviously is something that was either heated and bent or cut out of another piece. So again, just to kind of go through a few examples and show you that I do have a history with it. Lots of experience with the PVC. This is where we were for archways. We would take and wrap the beam with a 1x12 and then take a 1x12 and cut the arches out. We found that 7 feet in between columns was kind of the sweet spot. If we went more than that, the radius became really shallow, but we could get what you see staying on that 7-foot layout, or somewhere in that area. And if we really wanted to go deeper, we could go with 15-inch material and get a little bit deeper cut out of it if we had the height to work with. Just more examples. My mission really was to create true extensions of the home, combine products that I believe really perform for the long term, and deliver projects that I felt good about and that I felt like would reflect well on me in the long run. And using PVC, and then as time moved on and we tried a few different PVCs and got to Versatex, we really felt like we had found just what we needed and never looked back from there, really. And we did a lot of wrap columns, and I want to talk to you about some VersaWraps. This is a specialty product that Versatex makes. We did a lot of PVC wrap columns. You see these under the porch and under the deck. That was pretty common for us to do. Used to do the same thing on the porch. Found all kinds of ways to use it on porches. We would rip a 1x4 down, just maybe 2.5, and rub an OG router on both sides and make chair rail out of it. And we would wrap the sill plates. We wrap the wall beams, obviously the columns. Just all kinds of ways that we found to use it that went beyond what the traditional builders would use. I mean, we use some corner boards and we use fascia freeze and maybe Soffit, but really we just lots of ways to incorporate the elements or aspects that would have given us problems before. It would either wick moisture and rot it, or bubble the paint, or cut, or did something that caused a problem. So again, just a few examples of working with Versatex. We also use it on the interior. Just obviously want to make everything match, but just all kinds of ways. We had a couple LVLs in here on this particular beam where we had a ridge, a gable and shed porch combination, and just to carry the load, we used a heavier LVL. So we could have gone with a 15-inch, but I think we just ended up going with something a little less and just did a running joint with the trim profile. And it worked fine with rustic ceilings too. It didn't really matter if it was a finished ceiling or it was more of an exposed rafter, tongue and groove. It worked great. And we used the sheet goods. We found that we could do anything that you can do on the interior, wainscoting type approach like you would do inside a house, we could do on the outside now, and we didn't have to worry about it, using plywood or anything that would absorb paint or peel or delaminate or give us a problem in the long run. We knew the PVC and the Versatex in particular was going to work well. So just an inside shot. And we found we could make a good bar top. We could take a 5/4 by 12 and do a little Roman Oji routed edge, maybe do a little eased edge on the bottom side, and made a great serving area, bar top, something customers loved. Didn't take much to do it from a cost standpoint, so customers were all over that. And these are just a few other examples. Some of these jobs, the ones on the left, go way back. It was really before the cap stocks came out, but it just shows you we were using this a while back, and just all kinds of ways to do this. I know this is more for the outdoor living people, but this is really the area I was focusing on. Extended shelves inside a porch. One of them, I don't remember which one, left or right top, was actually for a cat to perch on. The other one just was for general use. I won't get into all the things that I did that I felt like separated me from a competition standpoint in my market, but one of the keys was that I did combine products that I believe would perform. And although we started out using different PVC, we would try one, jump to another. We thought we might save money with this or that. What we learned is it didn't all work the same. So we ended up using Versatex. I think we crossed paths with them in 2009. But the way I looked at it, the better type of products I put out there are projects. Using the right products, it's going to reflect better on my reputation. And the better my reputation is, obviously, the easier it is to sell. So to me, what you deliver from what your building philosophy is, what kind of jobs you're going to deliver, and what kind of products you're going to use that are going to reflect on you. So the delivery history matters. The obvious benefits with Versatex is it doesn't split, doesn't rot, warp, doesn't do all the things that wood can do if it's exposed to moisture. It's impervious to insects. Insects aren't going to bother it. For the most part, it's like working with wood. Easy to cut, it's saw, screw, route, anything you do with wood, you can do with this. And it can be heated and bent. It doesn't have to be painted. All the jobs you saw that I was flashing in front of you a few minutes ago were painted. I was a believer in just doing a little bit more of an investment in painting the product. It just brought the thing together, brightened it up. And I know some think that if you're painting something, you're automatically creating a maintenance issue, but I don't look at it that way because it doesn't do like wood. If it was a paint job on wood, you're definitely creating a maintenance issue, but with PVC, it's going to last 4 or 5 times longer. It's not going to be the same issue. These people or your customers are just going to have to decide they want to change the color. It's almost the only reason they would have to repaint. Again, these kind of jobs, these kind of combinations of products and projects are what build our reputation as a builder. As far as the types of material options you have with Versatex, almost endless. Almost anything you can buy in wood, you can buy in PVC. As far as sizes go, everything from a 1x2 to a 1x16, anything from 5/8 thick up to 1.25 inches. You see you can get 12 and 18s, and in most lengths you can get 20-foot lengths other than the 1.25 and 1.5 material. You can get the peel and eat. This is basically just a protective wrap that's adhered to the face of the product. You can do the installation and then peel and knead off after the job's installed. Also, there's an option instead of getting smooth on 2 sides, you can get smooth and timber ridge on one side. And if you really start comparing the grain texture to Versatex to others, I think you're going to see that that Versatex is superior for sure. You also have 2x, 2x4s up to 2x12, 18-foot lengths. You can also get sheet goods in that same thickness at different 4x or up to 18-foot lengths. A lot of different uses for a 2x. For me, if it had been around when I was building, I would have used it on arbors. And if you're an outdoor living builder or deck builder and you're doing arbors, they provide in their guide a span chart so you can get an idea of what you can do, what size, and what kind of spans you can do before you start running into kind of issues. And if you are going to do a beam spread between columns that's over 8 feet, depending on the load, you might have to reinforce it, and they provide a detail for that too. So there's a lot of options, a lot of information for you in that. None of these jobs have 2x Versatex material on the joist aspects or joist components of it. All the vertical trim is Versatex. I was building today, and when this is available, I'd definitely be using it instead of the sanding down and prepping the wood and doing 2 coats of solid stain on them and still not really getting the right look. You have an option now to use a 2x material. Sheet goods come in every thickness from 1/4 inch to 1.5 inches. You can get 4x8 all the way up to 4x20, with the exception of the 2 thinnest versions and the 2 thickest versions. But for the ones that would most likely be used, you can get up to 20 foot. And you actually can get 5 foot wide sheets instead of 4 if you prefer. These are just a couple of ways that I know that builders or millworks guys have done or used the product, the sheet good products. You can build outdoor cabinets. There's a couple of examples of that. And in the lower 2 pictures is where they took 1.5 inch sheet and put on a CNC machine and just cut out a railing profile. So, again, the options are just about endless on how you can use this. And if you got a job where you're going to have a bunch of specific lengths, and if you buy an 18 and you're cutting it down to 15 or 14/6, whatever it may be, and you're going to do a lot of them, if you can meet their minimal requirement, which I forgot what it is, but it's not much, you can save a lot of money. I can remember going to jobs and seeing PVC on the ground and a lot of composite decking boards or PVC deck boards laying on the ground, and I would try to preach to my guys, look, if you have to drop it, you have to drop it, but just know that that's a bunch of $5 bills, $10 bills, even $20 bills laying around on the job that's going to end up being thrown in the dumpster. So where you can be as efficient as possible. And this particular program allows you to do that, and you can see it adds up pretty quickly. Versatex also has numerous trim profiles. I mean, there may be something that you need that they don't have, but a millworks could run it, but you have a lot of standard options here that are available to you. There's also an extensive line of specialty products. We're going to go through those in a few minutes, but just we'll go through that, and I'll explain some of the options there and how to install. Versatex is manufactured on the Ohio River and Aliquippa. I think it's the Ohio River now. I'm having trouble remembering, but it's obviously American made, American owned. Interesting thing, when all the COVID stuff hit and availability issues started popping up all over the place, Versatex was never more than 2 weeks out on their shipping, on their orders, with the exception of maybe some of the specialty products. It was available. The one thing you find if you get to know people at Versatex, this is a very innovative company. They believe they're not complacent. The leaders and the drivers behind this company are pretty impressive. They really want to have a big, strong desire to continue to improve products. Sometimes they're trying to improve something I don't even think can be improved, but they're always looking for other ways that they can make things a little bit better, or they can provide a product or an option to contractors that'll serve them better in the field. What it really comes down to is what's in the product. The recipe, when it comes to PVC, matters. That's one of the things we learned when we first started using PVC. We liked it. It didn't do the things wood did, but some of it moved more than others. Some of it gave it different problems. And so we bounced around a little bit, tried to save money at first. We just thought it was all the same, but we quickly learned, or pretty quickly learned, that it's not. And when we crossed paths with Versatex and started using that product, we never even considered a change after that. So you get what you pay for. When I say what's in the recipe matters, a lot of manufacturers, they're going to produce a board, and maybe at first glance they look to be the same, but they're not. They're going to use fillers. It could be calcium carbonate, limestone filler. They're going to probably reduce the PVC resins. The titanium dioxide number is probably going to be pretty low, and that's basically the equivalent of a sunscreen that really helps the product's weatherability and keeps it from yellowing. So our Versatex does not have to be painted. A lot of the PVC products do. So the reduction of key components or lack of definitely impacts the physical properties. Again, everything from any general weatherability, breakage, just to life of the trim. If you look at this picture, it may be a little bit hard to see, but this was a project where some lumberyard carried a couple different brands. They carried Versatex and another brand. The builder ordered PVC and ended up mixing up the product. And you can see the gray, which is an indication of limestone and calcium carbonate fill. And you see it doesn't match. And it not only doesn't match in the color, you look at it a little bit later, you're going to start to see differences on how they're weathering. Versatex guarantees their product to be width and thickness wise within a 32nd of an inch, that, compared to 1/16 of an inch of other PVC manufacturers. That may not seem like much, but you get one that's a 1/16 big and one that's a little 1/16 tight. And you button them together, you're going to see a difference. And that definitely comes into play when you're doing sheet goods and millworks, where you're actually running these through a CNC machine or something, where you're trying to get some kind of profile or on the sheet itself. But you're also going to get a little bit more from a product standpoint. You can see this, the dimensional sizes are going to give to you to be right at 1 inch, not under. One of the biggest differences in Versatex and other PVCs I had used was the expansion and contraction. Others expanded and contracted to the point it became a problem. Versatex did not, once we learned what we needed to do to attach it properly. You can notice a denser cell structure in Versatex. And for those that are interested or concerned, it has a Class A fire rating. And you would be surprised at the kind of dings and scratches that you get out of this. I'll show you an example of that later. Versatex offers the industry's best warranty. So it's not a game. You don't know a lot of mice typing there. You got to read it's a lifetime warranty. It's not prorated, and it's fully transferable to the first sale of the property. Okay, let's get into the installation or the general installation tips and best practices. This stuff for the most part is like working with wood, but there's some simple things that you do need to be aware of or need to understand so that you don't create unnecessary issues. There is a contractor handbook. This is a great handbook. It's been updated recently. It's got a lot of information in it, both in print and in illustrations and charts. So this is something you're going to want to have available. The book will cover everything. There are several videos that cover some of the installation and best practice techniques. These are things that you can just go to Versatex website, click on pros, and click on installation and go down, and in 2 minutes, 10 seconds, you can watch any of these videos, and if you're about to do a particular installation, it'll be helpful. When you're cutting, less is better when it comes to teeth on a blade, where you use a blade with a lot of teeth to get a non-fray type cut on some plywood or different wood. With Versatex or PVC in general, you're going to want to use less teeth. Now, if you're cross cutting, I've cut with blades that had a lot more teeth than what I'm showing you here and never had a problem. But if you start running this through a table saw, that's when it's probably going to show up, and it's going to start heating it up, may cause some yellow discoloration on it. And it could even, I can remember cutting through with a little fine blade on the jigsaw, and it was just seaming itself together after we cut. So it's just something to be aware of. Most of you guys in the field, probably not as big an issue, but anytime you're running, especially in the shop, it's going to matter. Drilling, pretty much just like drilling with wood, just use regular twist bits. I've used Forstner bits, all work fine. Just don't use anything that's specifically designed for rigid PVC. If you have an end cut or a ripped edge or even a routed profile, and especially if you're not going to paint, you need to close it up. Even though the cell structure is dense, you're still going to have some open cells. If you don't do something with it, it's going to trap dirt. It's going to turn dark on you over time. So with a flat edge like a rip or end cut, it's a one-step deal, especially if you're just using orbital sander. Take 320. I've even used 220 when I couldn't find a 320 pads, and just get on it for about 15 seconds, and it just creates friction and heats it up and closes the cell structure up, and you're not going to have that trapping dirt or promote growth or get dark on you. If you have a profile, you're going to want to take, what I take is a sponge. If the sponge is wore out, I'll take 320 grit and wrap it around the sponge and just run it up and down the profile of router just a few times. It creates heat and starts putting the cells together. Follow that up with acetone, and the acetone chemically reacts with it and starts heating up and closing the cells up the rest of the way. So it's a two-step process on that one when you just have a flat cut. Just a little trick, if you're working with this, you'll notice your tools stick to you. If you take a few minutes and just a minute and spray tools down, let them dry off, and then run them, you'll find it works a lot better. It's a lot less dust being collected. Not to say you won't have to blow it off every couple hours or so, but it won't be nearly as bad as it is when you're not spraying. This is just a photo illustration of working with an orbital sander. You see how it works. Routing, same thing you do with wood, you would do with Versatex for the most part, just a standard carbide tip blade. If you're running a millworks, then you're going to want to go to the guide and look for speed and feed rates, that sort of thing. But for the most part, when you're working out in the field like me, I just run it as fast as I feel like running it. You can let it come backwards. It doesn't really try to jump on you like it would if you were doing wood. So, you know, it's very workable. It's very easy to router. And again, closed cells, two-step process to do that. Fastening is one of the keys to making sure, I mean, one of the things you need to make sure you're doing right so you don't create yourself an issue. About the worst thing you could probably do if you're running trim boards, you know, fascia, freezer band, is to start shooting it with just thin trim nails, like you see on the left. If you can bend it in your finger, it doesn't have enough backbone to really hold the boards in place, especially the long boards. If it's short pieces of trim and things that maybe you're doing some combination of gluing and fastening, and it's all short, smaller pieces, no problem. But when you get into these runs of real trim, you've got to go with something with a backbone. So the 8Ls, stainless, the screws, 7 or 8D, those are going to work well. Those are going to keep the board stable. You want to get a good penetration, so Versatex recommends 1.25 inches into the substrate. Just like with fasten wood, you want to stay near the edges, not right on it, but near it. Don't try to stay less than 2 inches. Obviously, you can use nail guns. You know, you know your guns, you know your tools, weather affects it, but you want to just kind of make sure that your gun, you've got their pressure adjusted where it's shooting the way you want to shoot it, and make those allowances. There is a fastening schedule. I've done a lot of traveling doing the roadshow. I see different things. I see a lot of boards that aren't installed the way they should be, and they leave themselves open for some issues. Regular trim boards is just like if you were attaching fascia or most wood products. 16 inches on center is pretty much the standard. If you're attaching 1x4, 1x6, 2 every 16. If you get into a little wider board, you start scaling up. 1x8, 1x10, I would go with 3. 1x12, you can do 3 to 4, and if you go with a really wide one, you can go 4 to 5. Now, whether to do 3 to 4 or whether to do 4 to 5, I would tell you, it's, you know, a lot of times 3 sides of the house are pretty stable, and there's one side that bakes in the sun and then cools off in the evening. Those are the ones that I would consider going with a maximum number on, not necessarily on the others. And the other thing you can do in a situation like that, if you want to just be absolutely sure that you're locking this thing down, is you can go to 12 inches on center, or maybe on that side of the house where that trim is kind of taking the brunt of the sun all the time. Again, Versatex is not going to shrink and swell. It's not going to do like wood. It's not going to cut. It only is affected by temperatures, and this is only the long runs. Your shorter runs are not going to be a problem. Width and thickness, never there'll be any movement. Window surrounds, for example, generally are never going to be a problem unless you've got some quadruple or window run where you're running across the bottom and top where you're running into a long run. So it mostly occurs, or will occur, only on the longer boards. And if you attach it like we're suggesting you attach it, you should not have more than 3/16 of an inch of movement overall. That's not on both ends. That's on one end only. I mean, not on one end, but that's split between the two ends. So you'll have little hairline cracks if you have movement at all. Again, all PVC doesn't move the same, and traveling around doing the roadshow, I've heard plenty of feedback about people that have used plastic or PVC, and they talk about how much it's moved. Well, you know, they're not going to have that problem with Versatex. We recommend that you consider using a shiplap joint. Just take a rabbiting bit on a router, square, keep it router from running around, and make a shiplap joint. And the benefit in that is if you do get a little bit of movement, you keep material between away from the substrate. It's an easy joint to work. It's, plug the router into a 3-way or get you a battery powered one. Doesn't take the time you might think. And once you get used to using it, that's really all you're going to want to do. Is even, not that it's hard to work a scarf joint or a miter joint, but this is easy. As it can't jump around, it's going to be where it's supposed to be. The temperature at the time of installation matters. In an ideal world, you'd install this every day at 60 degrees, but we all know that's just not the way it is. So if you're installing it when it's hot, you can run it tight. When you're in a cooler temperature condition, then you're going to want to leave a little bit of a space. You have to kind of vary with this, but you don't have to leave much. At the most, you're going to leave an eighth and allow it a place to move. Now, this little diagram shows sealant being put in there. You can do that or not do it. We didn't do it. I don't really worry about that being a problem. Personally, I'm more concerned about the caulk being squeezed out and being a problem that way. So you're trying to run this knowing that you need to allow for movement on the longer runs and in certain places. You can kind of control where that's at. Let's say you got a situation where you're in front of a doorway, a lot of visibility. You just don't want this joint to ever move at all. There's a 3-step process that allows you just to lock this down. Regardless of the joint you're going to do, you basically, assuming you got a substrate to attach to, apply adhesive, just a PL or liquid nail type of adhesive, 2 feet either side of the joint. Glue the ends with a PVC cement. Usually it's a Weld-On or a Christie's, something like that. And the key to understand when you're working with PVC is when you use PVC cement, you do not put the glue on both ends or both sides. You put it on one side only. It's always a wet to dry fit. There's a fusing process that occurs when you do this, whereas you just get a little bit of adhesion the other way. You can't really rely on the glue to glue. So this is the way to do it. So second step is a PVC glue. Third step, instead of doing 1 set of fasteners on either side of that joint, you're going to double up and do 2 sets. And again, based on the size, the width of that board, depending on how many fasteners are recommended, like a 1x6 would be 2, a 1x12 might be 3, or it might be 4. Keep that in mind, but basically doing 2 sets. And just something to food for thought, if you're doing a job where you've got a hip roof and you're running fascia coming off the corners, instead of starting with an 18 and 18 off both corners, which increases the chance that you're going to get a little movement on that corner. If you start with something shorter, even a 12-foot board, then that's going to lessen any potential movement on that end. Again, this is just a diagram showing, again, 2 feet of adhesive on either side of the joint, PVC glue, wet to dry, and a double set of fasteners. When it comes to attaching sheet goods, it's a lot like attaching sheathing on a roof. You just got basically your layouts here that they're showing you basically a diagram, and you can go to the book, but understand that just follow the recommendations. You can definitely use biscuits. Anything you're using biscuits on with wood, you can use it on Versatex as well. It's more of the one I remember is like a nylon biscuit. We never use those, but I've played around with them, and I know they're available, and I've talked to plenty of people that have used them. If you're painting and you're need to fill nail or screw holes, platinum patch is recommended. We've gotten a lot of feedback over the last 2 or 3 years from contractors who are using it. Again, this is for use when you're going to paint. Just something that doesn't seem to shrink. Minimal flashing, works well. If you're not painting, the best systems we could tell you out there are the plug system, that's Fasten Master Cortex, and the Starborn system. Both of them work pretty much the same, a little bit different driver a bit. Just make sure that you're getting Versatex plug so that you got a perfect match. If you used a lesser line of PVC and you have more of a grayer wood, then that white's going to jump out at you everywhere you fastened. Make sure that you're getting the right length, up to 1 inch. You can go with 2-inch screws, and the reason you can do the 2 inches, it's going to countersink a 1/4 inch, so you still get that 1 1/4 inch penetration. If you get into some thicker runs, or you're starting to go through some type of foam or something that's not really can be considered a substrate, just make sure you're using long enough fasteners. Versatex has the highest paint adhesion rating of any PVC. Basically, it's just a low gloss, so it's you're not going to have to rough it up like you do with some PVC if you're going to paint. Sherwin-Williams shows you the rating. I don't really know what all 5A, 4A stuff means, but it sounds good, and that is a rating that Sherwin-Williams gives it. Like I said before, some will ask you, well, if we're going to paint it, why should we use it? Why don't we just use wood? We're creating a maintenance issue. You're not, because this paint is going to perform. When you think it'll perform 4 or 5 times better, or last 4 or 5 times longer, should not be considered a maintenance issue. So works great, really brightens everything up as far as I'm concerned. If you're painting, not a lot of prep work, just want to clean any residue or dirt off the boards. Denatured alcohol works, spick and span works. And just keep in mind that the paint does take a little while longer to cure, 30 days actually. And follow the manufacturer's suggestions. You technically don't have to prime Versatex. We did, just because we want to make sure that customer did have the paint warranty for whatever reason, just in case it was a bad batch or something broke down. It wouldn't be because of the PVC, it would only be because of the paint. Things to keep in mind if you are painting is there's a such thing as a light reflective value, LRV. Versatex wants you to use something with a light reflective value of 50 to 100. The higher the number, the more light reflective value. When you start getting into dark paints, you get below that 50, and you're going to want to be really careful to use vinyl safe paints. And if you're really going dark at all, I mean, I'd be careful even with some that are rated for vinyl safe, but there's a paint out there called Versatex that you can literally paint chocolate brown, hunter green, black. You can go, and it will get only a few degrees hotter than the PVC that it's attached to. So it performs, but you have to be real careful to make sure you're doing the installation and the application exactly as they recommend. So you would want something you want to read up on and get your pricing on, so you know how to use it. You can match any color. So there is an option out there if you're going dark. So if you want to paint this chocolate brown rail cap like we did, just make sure you're using the right paint. Adhesives, again, PVC to PVC, the Weld-On 705, is an option. The Christie's is. You can get it with a dauber, you can get it with the tube. It depends on what application you're doing, on what tube you want to get. The Red Hot typically comes out a little slower. The Weld-On comes out kind of quick. So you just have to get used to working with it. And then if you're going PVC to wood, the PL liquid nail type adhesives work. And just make sure that you're using the right adhesive for the surface you're attaching to. For caulk, it's just pretty simple, urethane caulk. You got to use something that contains solvents. Silicone will not adhere to PVC. It will not work, so do not just X that off your list. You can usually look at the end of the tube. If it's got a metal end cap on it, that's urethane caulk or solvent based. And if it's got plastic, it's most likely silicone. A couple of exceptions out there, but that's generally the case. Cleaning, for the most part, you can clean 80 or 90% of any dirt off PVC just using household cleaners. I actually like the Spray 9. I've used a bunch of different ones. I am going to try a different one just to experiment with it this year on the road show. But the Spray 9 works great. It doesn't leave residue. It just cleans it up. If you get into something really stubborn, you might combine some soft scrub and bleach and get on it. And you can even use a Mr. Clean eraser. That eraser will take off things you just don't think is going to come off. But I still like to use the eraser with a little bit of liquid on it, just because the eraser is basically the equivalent of 1,000 grit sandpaper, and it will, mat out the surface a little more. That if you're looking at it at the right angle, you'll see it. If you get dings in it, and you'd be surprised what you can get out. When I'm doing the road show, I'll make 2 or 3 heavy lines or scratches with a screwdriver. I'll ding it up with a square. I'll hit it with a hammer, put a half moon in it, and I'll even ding the edges up where I routed the edge, and you can get it all out. Now this says 4 to 6 inches over the surface. It kind of depends on your gun and so forth. But once you get used to doing it, you can get closer. What I like to do is get, bear with me, what have we got here? I like to get just an inch or 2 off the smooth. And I recommend, if you're using the plug-in gun, let it run for 2 or 3 minutes, let it really heat up. Don't just turn it on and start trying to get it out. And then get over it and just, don't wave back and forth across the whole board. I like to just kind of work my way across, and as I see the scratch coming out, I move across. But if you check your gun out, make sure that your low heat works and doesn't burn it. Shouldn't, you might have to back off a little bit if it does. And then on the wood grain or the timber, I like to stay 3 or 4 inches off of it. It actually comes out of the grain, the wood grain side, easier than the smooth. Just watch it, and as soon as you see it lifting out, you just kind of go across. But if you get too close to the timber ridge, you'll start laying down the wood grain. Here's an little example. Not exactly a high-res video, but you get the point. Okay, let's get into the specialty product line. Versatex has a lot of them. They have several tongue and groove profiles. They've had the white for a long time. You'll see different ones. You got the 1/2 inch, which is the stealth board. You got the WP4, which is the 3/4. You got the regular. You got the stealth flange, and you've also got this reversal that you can have a V groove on one side or shiplap on the other. You can also get sheet goods, 4 by 8 by 1/2 inch and up to 10-foot lengths on that. If you look on this left picture, you can kind of see that the profile, depending on which way you turn it, you can have a V groove on one side, or you can flip it, and you can have just the straight edges and the nickel gap. And you actually can get the 7 1/4 inch widths if you want on the one profile, all 18-foot lengths. And just for what it's worth, all boards aren't the same. It's not only what's in the recipe and what the overall performance of it is, but Versatex actually gives you a wider board, gives you more material for the money when it comes to the ceiling products. Of course, it's used in, outside, mostly in porch ceilings and that sort of thing, but you can use it in bathrooms. We actually used it in the porch knee walls. And I remember we had this job where when you lift that spa cover off that spa, just all kinds of moisture just came straight up and bounced off the ceiling. So you had to have something that would hold up, and it was just a perfect application for us on this particular job. And just for general use in porches, a lot more moisture in there than some people might think sometimes. So it works great. This is something that's really a great looking product. And if you're not familiar with it, you should be looking at it. It's called the Canvas Series. It's basically a laminate a product option where the laminate is attached to Versatex PVC trim. This is not something new that has been slightly tested and we hope will work. This is a German technology, been used in Europe for over a decade, had a real good history. It's used on the laminate's used, I think, on other products over there like windows and other things outside of the regular PVC, but this will perform. It does not get hot, so it's not going to heat up and try to move. It's going to stay, it's going to move or work with the PVC just like the PVC does. And it just won't laminate. So something you would want to look at. There's some different options. You got the WP4, which is the 3/4. Got several different color options. The Katami or oak are the newer colors. You also have not beadboard, but bed mold and crown that's available with this. And there are touch-up kits and a wax crayon. So if you have a little end or something that you've got to kind of do maybe a little slight repair or just a touch-up to cover something up, there's some options there that are perfect matches. In addition to the WP4, you got the Stealth board. This is the 1/2 inch product. And you can kind of see the profile as you look at this. And you actually have one other color option on this, which is the Piazza Blue beadboard. Been a lot of interest in that, especially on some of the coastal markets that we go through in the roadshow. But again, you got the crown and the bed mold to go along with that. Just general considerations or general tips on this. Whenever you're handling a product like this, you just want to use common sense and handle it properly. It's not framing material. You don't want to throw it around. You don't want you guys dragging it around the backyard and then putting it up. They need to put a little thought in how they handle it. Not a lot, but I mean, just simple common sense stuff. And again, you've got some options to do little touch-ups. When you're installing either one of these products, you want to leave a 1/4 inch gap all the way around the perimeter. So if you're running this in there, just cut it 1/2 inch short, split the difference, have a 1/4 inch gap, face nail around the perimeter, stay right on the edge. That way your trim's going to cover. If you stay right on the edge, even a 3/4 inch trim would cover, but crown or bed mold definitely will. You want to use 2 inch stainless steel trim nails on this, and you can space this up to 24 inches on center. So 16 to 24 is what's recommended. If you're running a bunch of butt joints and running long lengths, and you could consider doing the shiplap as well. I've cut this and it doesn't fray. It doesn't do like you would think. Canvas, again, that 1/4 inch gap all the way around, face nail around the perimeter. The difference here is the fasteners that you're going to use. You're going to use a 1/4 inch by 1 inch leg galvanized or stainless steel staple. I would stay with stainless as often as you can. If you can't get them, make me okay with this one. But 12 inches on center is what you have to stay with. And you need to use an adhesive with this one. So you need to, it's one extra step, but just it wouldn't be a bad idea to use adhesive on all of them. As far as I'm concerned, using adhesive for the WP4, this just makes for a better installation. but definitely you have to use it on this product. And you get in a situation where you've got joists that are 16 inches or wider, or more than 12 really, then you can use a sub sealing, and with the 1-inch staples, you can just fasten to that along with the adhesive. So that's a way to, instead of getting in there stripping or blocking to try to get your layout right, that's a way to do it. And we did on a few jobs, instead of just even having butt joints, we just kind of divided the ceiling up. So we would do fake beams like you see in both these photos, so that we could just kind of divide the boards up and make them work and not have joints, and we wouldn't get any movement on these links, but if you did, it would be moving behind the crown. And I want to point this out for anybody that's doing watertight decks. If you look at my Instagram page, or look, you see the kind of jobs we're doing. This is an example of 6 of them right here. We did a lot of watertight decks. We had our own system. There's a lot of watertight deck options out there, and you hope with all these that they never, if they do, it creates a lot more issues than a leak. Water gets down in there, and you got beadboard, regular wood beadboard, or wood of any kind. If it goes on for long, it's going to be a problem. It'll blow beadboard right out. It's just going to begin to stain and create issues with other tongue and grooves. But if you use the canvas, which to me, the canvas is a perfect option for the watertights, it doesn't matter how much it leaks or how long it leaks. At some point, you just got to fix the leak. You don't really have anything you can worry about replacing on the canvas series, because it's immune to the moisture. It can't hurt it. Just one other example of some of the ones we were doing. Versatex also has their VersaWrap, and if you haven't used these, or you're not familiar with them, you should look into them. If you look at my website, or look at my my Instagram page rather, you see wrap columns after wrap columns, whether it's under decks, whether it's in porches, whether it's in arbors. We did a bunch. A lot of work involved in that. Versatex has a 1-piece wrap. This is not 4 pieces that snap together. This is 1 piece that you wrap, and you got all these different sizes up to 12 by 12. And then you got a raised panel, which is what you see in that lower right picture on the very left. You can tell it's got a little raised profile or detail, and you can get that in 2 different sizes. Again, not only, it's just like the tongue and groove I was showing you a while ago that's wider. When you get Versatex wraps, those other companies try to imitate Versatex, but most of those snap together, and they're not the same thickness. So you see the Versatex on the right, you're just getting a better, it's more solid column. It's 1 piece. You're not going to have the loose joints. It's just a better product. You also can get the trim kits. And when I say get the trim kits, you get the base, you get the base cap, you get another base cap for the trim ring, and get the crown. All this comes in a bag, just like you see in that right lower picture. You see it all comes together, it all snaps together. This is a super easy install. And to give you an idea how well it pays off, if I look back at the jobs that we used to do and what I pay my guys to field build, and not count what the painter had to do to go all the fasteners, it was 4 to 1 from a production standpoint. These shots are just off of just screenshots off a video that you can get to when you're in the installation section of the website. And all you're doing here is taking and running bead down one side of two slots on the wrap, fold it up. I would say you want to clamp it at that point. Don't try to just pick it up and wrap it, but clamp it before you pick it up and start moving it around. A low and high clamp, and at 1 or 2 in the middle, depending on the size. You can let it sit up if you want and then install it. If you clamp it right, you can pick it right up, run your glue down all the other joints, and close it up. So you watch the video, you see how simple this is. And again, you see the bag, you see the trim, all bagged up, all snaps together. So like I was saying, I got ahead of myself, but when it comes to the production side, the cost of delivery to in the field of a field built wrap like we used to do, labor material, compared to a VersaWrap and the trim kits, it's about the same overall delivery cost. But from a production standpoint, you can do 4 or 5 of these VersaWraps in the time it takes to do one field, and it looks better. You're going to have better corners than we ever would do. Just going to have better product. We did a lot of wraps where we didn't really have a ceiling to hit up to bed to crown up to. So what we did is we just took a piece of 5/4, took Roman OG routed edge, and just made little caps on it and installed a little differently in different applications. But you can see that how we were using them and when we were using them. Versatex also has the Craftsman style columns, the tapered ones. These are snapped together, but glue and snap. 4 of them. You got the 16-inch base and the 12-inch base, and a couple different links. These go together really easy. You can see on the right picture the trim kit at the bottom. That comes prefabricated as well. Again, screenshots off the video. Cut the length, put the glue on 2 of the female sides on one board, pop those 2 in, and then basically put it around the post and install. There's a couple of little trim on that 3rd down left row. You'll see what he's installing on that picture. Those come together. There are two sets of them, and you install one at the bottom and top. It kind of gives you a guess as to where the columns install. Watch the video; it'll be a little clearer. But this stuff just got together. Versatex has one-piece corner boards, so no matter what kind of siding you're installing, especially if you're installing some of the cement fiber stuff and building up corner boards, attaching them together, you're going to love this. They come in up to 22-foot lengths. You're not going to have any joints coming down. You're not having to fight with 2 pieces. It's a seamless corner because there's a skin left on this one. These wrap, just like the VersaWraps, there's a thin skin left on that. So when it folds, there is no crack, there is no joint. And so you have the regular corner boards, you have the stealth corner boards, you have the stealth hidden fastener, which has a flange. You've got some options as far as the width goes. You can see in that left stack or left column, 3.5 up to 7 1/4. And you get an idea of the quality of them when you start doing a comparison. A couple of things here. One, you've got a different kind of joint on it, and that's thin skin and a good adhesion. I mean, if you look at this from the top, and if you rolled it over and look down on the inside corner, you would see the differences. In fact, you can kind of see it on the right picture over here. You see that there's glue. It's almost like a caulk line. You don't see that on the other. Not only that, it's a full 3/4 inch cutout, so you can get your siding or trim board behind it. You've also got a full 1/4 inch on the flange, so it's not something that's it's real fragile and it's gonna break on you. And I've heard of other people talking about other ones that have. The installation is pretty simple. Just make sure you know what manufacturers want you to do, what they require with their siding. But you can, a couple different ways to do this. You can put a straight edge and run your siding to it, take it down, caulk the ends or coat the ends, and then install your Versatex corner. Or you can just chalk a line. But this installation is very simple. Versatex has a stealth skirt board. If you've got siding and you're getting down too close to grade, it's going to be a code issue. This is a good solution, but even if you don't have that, it just makes a good accent trim piece anyway. So know that you've got this, and this will attach just like most of all the other 1x2 every 16 on center. This is just a little side diagram on the left and a little finish here where it shows you that the corner board received the trim as well. Just as the stealth corners, we have the stealth corners, it also has stealth window trim. You got stealth with the flange, you got the trim with the flange, and you got the casing with the J channel. You'll notice on some of these that it's been slotted out so that the nailing fin on the window won't create an issue. This just tucks right over it and it won't wobble around or try to move on you when you're installing. You've got a number of different widths here, 3.5 up to 7 1/4. And this is in full 1 inch and an 18-foot lengths. Again, here's another picture, another good example of just what you're getting when where some of the differences are. Just one of many when it comes to Versatex and others. You got that full 1/4 inch. That's not going to break off unless you really do something pretty drastic. The other one is, you can't say the same thing. Installation, pretty simple. Just prep your window as you normally would. Most of the people I know that are doing these are prefabricating or pocket screwing the perimeters. I've heard of some that are using biscuits and gluing and joining. Just make sure you're getting the right penetration. Again, 16 inches on center, just like most of the other installations. And you would not use stealth. You'd only use the stealth on the 2 sides vertically. And then when you would use a regular piece across the top, but you just got to slot it out or rabbet it out so that it tracks with a vertical. Same for the windowsill, just so that your siding all coming around will tuck just the same as that side piece. There's a lot more information in the installation guidebook too. Versatex also has a Soffit system. You can get up to, you can get from 12, 16, and 24-inch wide boards, 18 feet long, ½ inch thick. You can get a slotted piece of fascia, and you can also get slotted frieze. And the slotted frieze also has that stealth flange on it, so that if you're running siding or up to it, it just runs right up behind it. I won't get into too much on the installation on this, but look in your book and you'll see it's basically if you're running 12-inch and you got a nail of the house and fascia, you're good, just attach it. But if you get into something 16 or wider, you're going to have a nailer if you're not blocking lookouts off the house out to the truss or rafter tail. And there is a T-mold, basically the theatrical type piece that you can use at the butt joints if you want to do it. And anything you can do with wood, you can do better with Versatex. This is just an example of a job that was done. And this Versatex has done a lot of amazing things. And you may have your own local millworks, but just know that this product can be used for all these different things, all that you see here. With the corbels, any custom molding, anything you can do, again, anything you do with wood, you can do it with Versatex. And just so you know, Versatex is green conscious, environmentally conscious. You see the numbers here. You know, over 1% of waste is recycled. It's a clean plant, and you'd have to, if you ever get a chance to do a plant tour, do it. You'll be impressed. You feel like you could do a surgery in that place. It's just brightly lit, all white and clean. It's unlike any plant I've ever been in. It's just an impressive operation. And you got a lot of support. If you ever need, you got engineers on staff you can call. You've got your local field rep that I think you'll find to be very helpful. If you get online and start going to the site and start clicking around on, you'll see all kinds of technical literature in there, in addition to the product guides and the installation handbooks. Lots of information there for you. And you can download this on your, download the app on your phone or iPad. And of course, we do the roadshow. I travel around doing that. So we're about to roll out, as a matter of fact, and get started a little bit earlier this year. So if you see that we're going to be close to you, we'd love for you to come by. We'd love to talk to contractors and see how things are going for you guys. And I'll learn from you and hopefully pick up something from us when we're out there on the road. If you're using this, you should have this Premier app. It's easy to download. You know, things add up pretty quick, but if you get you spend $1,000, you're automatically going to get a check for $100. And I think they'll let you go back a couple of months on this. But basically, download the app, take a photo through the app, and you don't have to do anything else but hit send, and they'll decipher everything for you, and they'll figure it out, and you'll just get your points. And then there's a lot of good prizes if you want to redeem your points in. As this is changing from time to time, and they're adding things to it. But there's no need to leave money on the table. It's just too simple to do, and there's no need not to do it. So I want to wrap up here. Again, I hope if you got some questions, you hit us box, and we'll get back to you on those. Really appreciate you taking the time. I hope you'll look us up when we're doing the road show, and I look forward to seeing